Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Michael Raso. We're here at the Film Photography Podcast. Today I'm here with the Rootin' Tootin' Midwest Gang.
Who are you?
Yes.
That's right, Leslie Lazenby,
Hello, everyone.
Mr. Mark O'Brien,
Howdy.
and Mr. Mat Marrash.
Hey.
It's very rare I get the Midwest Gang in at the same time. There's always some, cross-pollination between the Jersey boys and the Midwest guys. Let's start off with a letter.
Mail's in.
Mat Marrash.
Oh. Hey, Mike, we have a lot of FPPers who, they look out for us. They make sure we're well-informed, whether it be a new product, a show, anything like that. And, going through our listener letters, a few names float to the top. I'm going to call out, initially, Mr. James Thorpe. We've had listener letters from him in the past, but I have a short stack.
Okay, stacked.
From Mr. James Thorpe, but I'll summarize because I don't want to go through each and every one. But he's just great about keeping us in touch with just some neat little things that are going on, and they're things that when I'm browsing them, I'm like, is this worthy talking about an FP? No, it's definitely worthy because we gotta let people know new products, new packaging, things like that. So the first one we got, and this one's a bit on the dated side, but James wanted to let us know, any of us that are doing alt process, specifically Mark D, maybe even Leslie, there's a gentleman that's making and coating fresh dry plates. So dry plates are the alt process that followed the wet plate process. Photographically, it's a little bit slower than wet plate, but it's a lot easier because you can pack a few in the darkroom and
Travel with it.
Yeah. Travel a little bit further. You don't maybe need a donkey with a darkroom on its back to make it happen. My darkroom roommate, Mr. Stephen Takis, he's a dry plate practitioner, and I get to see the fruit of those results all the time. It's pretty cool. So he sent us the link to it. The link for and these are dry plates coated by Mr. J. Lane, and the website is pictoriographica.com. So Pictorio, Pictorio, and then Graphica, Graphica.com.
And
For those who don't do their own processing, nor do they want to on the dry plates, they can send them to our good friends at Blue Moon Camera and Machine. Mm-hmm. So he said he looks forward to giving that a shot.
and then
We'll get back to Mr. James Thorpe. He has one other update for us. But interestingly enough, not too long after James tipped us off, do we get a letter from Mr. Jason Lane, Jay Lane himself, explaining to us about the entire process and what he's offering. Gave us a link to his site. So this is pretty cool. They're made in the USA in Brookline, New Hampshire. Yeah, since through the end of 2018, he's coated just over 10,000 dry plates. Pretty neat. Mark,
Are these on glass or on some other substrate?
the dry. Let's see. Plates meter ASA 2. Make my own emulsion and plates. Let me just double check. Prep and coat. I believe these are on the tin, or like the trophy aluminum.
So
Let me
like
double
tin?
check. They might be on glass. Oh, that's actually a really good value. No, they are hand-coated glass dry plates.
Okay.
Let's see what sizes he offers through the online
Now-
shop.
Oh, I was going to say, because he does do custom, too.
Yes, and he sells the accessories like the drying racks and things to hold them. Oh, he has some dealers. He's got a Canadian dealer, a German dealer, U.S., Blue Moon, Boston Sullivan, Freestyle, and our friend's Glass Key Photo in San Francisco. Wow.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Pretty cool. Oh, wait, here, he's got an Etsy shop to buy them direct. I think this is what I saw initially, was the Etsy store. So now he's really kind of blossoming out into like full-on retail here. So he makes quarter plates, whole plates, half plates, 4x5, 5x7, 8x10, 6.5x9, or sixth plates, postcard plates, 3 1/4 by 5 1/2. He's doing it all. This is pretty cool.
Well, you could take those postcard ones and put them in the old Kodak folding cameras that take those, and it would be really cool.
9 by 12 plates. He really does. Anything that would have been used to make dry plates, you can make it. He's gotten a lot of good 5-star reviews and people posting up good results. This is neat. And the price, I would say, is pretty fair considering it's glass. So a lot of the boxes, of course, I instinctively clicked on the 8 by 10 plates. 5 plates, glass, and everything you need to shoot. ISO 2, 5 is $80.
I'm thinking if this comes in under a hunch, it's going to be a good deal.
It's a good deal.
$80.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's good stuff. And, for folks at home that haven't tried one of these processes, especially dry plate, the detail, the sharpness that you can get on a dry plate like this, insane. Nothing quite like it. Leslie.
But if you have a large format camera, you cannot just put a dry plate
in a regular holder.
Regular holder, correct?
You can modify a holder. Mr. Bill Schwab had a little tutorial on how to do that a long time ago on the blog. But you typically want to use something like an old Graflex pressure film holder. If you're hearing this now and going to go on eBay, I've got bad news for you. The price on those is pretty bad. Thanks, wet platers. There are folks that are making their own wet plate and dry plate holders. Chamonix makes one for too much money. I talked about him on the podcast a long time ago. Mr. Jody Ake makes them in California. So there's options, but this is not I'm gonna buy a roll and play around with it kind of thing. You're going pretty all in to get into this type of photography. And remember, it's ISO 2.
It's quite slow.
But pretty neat stuff. Mike.
You talk about being able to go online, buy some dry plates. These are for folks who, at home, have a 4x5 camera, a 8x10 camera.
Or an old folder, like an old Kodak folder, vest pocket. It's something that can take individual plates, or you could potentially load it into the back. And
so let's say my 4x5 camera. I buy
Yes.
a dry plate. Does it fit in a standard holder, or do I have something special?
It does not, especially because these are glass. You're going to need a specialty plate holder, and the plate holders are typically a little bit thicker, and they will have a larger spring in the back of it, usually 1 or 2 metal springs that the plate will kind of push down into, and that's to maintain the pressure, because if the plate has a certain thickness, that holder has to put it in just the right place, because even if you're a millimeter off, all that focusing you did on the ground glass is for naught.
And does the come with a little cheat sheet so you know, like, what is the ISO of a plate, generally speaking?
Yeah, he states it himself. It's thoroughly tested at ISO 2, which if you are wanting to experiment and make your own dry plates, you can buy those, the pre-made emulsions, or you can test your hand at making your own emulsion. That is really tricky, hard to do business. Even if you're very experienced in wet plate, dry plate is a whole different beast. And these are tested. If Jason has made over 10,000 plates, I'm going to trust this guy to do anything on a piece of glass over even some of my wet plate buddies. He knows what he's doing at this point, and he's scaled it up.
Terrific. For folks listening who are like, what? I don't get it.
What is?
If you're thinking about getting into more super traditional camera on a tripod, 4x5 camera, 8x10 camera, here's my encouragement as a shooter who does not get out enough. I don't ever sweat it, because your investment, it is an investment. You will not lose any money. If you today invest in a camera, I'm pretty confident in the next 5, 6, 7 years you're not going to lose your money if you buy a quality camera.
No, and especially it's kind of counterintuitive, but especially in the smaller sizes, the 4.5s, because that's a big enough camera, but it's also readily available enough that you can kind of get out easily. The large stuff, it gets crazy.
Don't feel like pressured that you're making this large investment. If you want to try it, even if it's a phase, like you said, Matt, you could pull a parachute, you can get out, and you can just put your camera on eBay, and you'll get your money back. Yeah,
very most of it. It's not like the digital stuff. A new camera comes out in 2 months, and you're taking a bath just because you didn't shoot your camera.
So, well, thanks. That's an awesome letter.
Yeah, no, thanks James, and thanks Jason for pointing that out. And I got one more little shout out from James. This is like fresh.
Oh, fresh.
It's like hit the mailbox
Freshie.
right before we read it here. I saw this announcement because I still follow a few businesses on the Facey Space and Twitter, and one of them is ADOX. And for folks, I know we've talked about this a few times before, but ADOX is a really great traditional, German over-engineered filmmaker. Over in the UK, you can order from Photo Impex online, and you have to place a pretty decent size order, but you can get some really neat films for still less than if you wanted to wait until the US retailers have it and mark it up price-wise. And James wanted to tip us off. ADOX has announced they're releasing their sheet film sizes again, and this includes, of course, 4x5, 5x7, 8x10, and if you're impatient and didn't get your Ilford ULF ultra-large format orders in time, they also have ultra-large format sizes in stock. The ADOX stuff, you can kind of dip your toe in. So the ADOX gives you the biggie sizes, your larger than 8x10 or your specialty sizes in 10-sheet boxes, which is really neat because paying for 25 sheets of something you maybe don't know you don't like yet it's quite a... Now we're not talking investment. Now we're just talking crazy money, like just money that is definitely going into a hobby and not coming back.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you, James. Let's go on the letter spree. Let's continue with letters.
Okay. Well, hey, Mike, this is one you might be able to help me out with. All right, this is from Tony Skokovic. Skokovic. Hello, FPP crew. I'm a hobbyist photographer and have been shooting film only a few years. Discovered your podcast through an FPP sampler pack I got for Christmas last year. Since then, I've gone through a few rolls of FEMA and Orwo films. I really like the look of the FN64 and FPP 400. Question I have is on the stability of supply from both Filmatech and Astrum. Are they still producing these emulsions, or are we running through an old supply? Both these manufacturers have a great product, but a web presence that throws doubt on the viability of their operation. Is there any insight you're able to share? I ask this question because supporting an ongoing operation is important to me.
What's this gentleman's name?
This is Tony. In Toronto.
Tony, there are a handful of folks like yourself, a handful who just need to know. It's sort of like me getting the emails. I received an email just last week where it's like,
hey, you guys carry SVEMA, but the factory's knocked down.
I keep getting that email over and over. So I went to my supplier. I found the town and the country, which was where the old SVEMA factory was. Mm-hmm. Here's where we get it from. I don't know why people think... boggles the mind that, if that factory's knocked down, what makes you think they didn't just move to a different building? What is people so stuck?
I think it's way more intriguing if there's a grander theory. They're not applying the Occam's razor to it.
It's a new word.
Yes. Theory photography.
No, it is.
It's people move.
Things happen.
And brands get, hey man.
Okay, I'm here, you can start.
And Mark Dalzell just walk in. Brands get assigned, like Polaroid here in the U.S. The old Polaroid's gone, the old buildings are gone, but it got assigned. Kodak was assigned. It's just the way things are.
That's for you.
So I would say,
yeah, it is.
Tony has a bit of the film sweats because he's worrying about the film infrastructure collapsing and what the sustainability is. But I'll let Matt answer this, and if anyone else want to chime in. The thing is, Tony, how could we possibly know? For example, Kodak, which is called Kodak Alaris, the company, they seem to be doing well. We're selling lots of film. They seem to be selling lots of film. But tomorrow, I can get that email where it's like...
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any...
You know what it is, Mike?
Answer.
We're how many years are we into this now?
10.
We're 10 years in, double digits. We are now Big Filma. We're supposed to have the answers about this sort of stuff.
Hey, man.
And the fact is, we're enthusiasts just like all of you guys out there.
Hi, Mark. Hey. I don't really know, and also you have to understand from my perspective, although FPP has accounts for all these companies and buys all this film, very little of the inner workings is, I'm not beer buddies with these people who run these companies.
No.
Like, very little of corporate stuff is shared. It's sort of like Dave Northrup, who's now here at, those film media guys.
Yeah, they share space with you now.
Dave worked for Deluxe, Color by Deluxe. It's part of a Burbank company. And it's like it was a huge facility that handled all sorts of encoding, of film, post-production services. Just one day, the call came in, and 3 months later, everyone's just fired.
Yeah.
No rhyme or reason to it. That branch was profitable, but somewhere along the line, someone just makes a decision. So I would say that these questions, like Tony's question, is it's sort of like things that are out of your control. It's sort of like me saying, someday I'm just gonna die.
Yeah, but that's not a good answer. That's,
but I don't know.
Yeah,
but I don't know when that's going to.
No longer profitable, so we're gonna just cut our losses.
That's what God says.
Well, I look at it as just shoot it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Stock up if you want, but some of my favorite films in the past, the companies are still around, or whatever's left of them, and they drop those films. Now I can't sweat about it because, hey, when it's gone, it's gone. And you just use it while you've got it.
I do understand Tony's need and want to support an ongoing thing, though. But at the same time, you have to recognize kind of where you stand in that chain of it. So shoot what you can of it. If you like it, shoot more of it.
And kind of way back up to his question, these are fresh films. These are not old stock. This is not discontinued warehouse stuff.
Yeah, the whole Ukrainian film situation, listeners, shooters, keep getting stuck on that, insisting that the SVEMA, yes, the Soviet Union's no longer, but clearly film's still being made. And I think a lot of this is really outside of our hands. We always think like film for us. We're shooting so little film. Me, you, everyone listening.
Compared to the world.
We're talking about the companies, including Kodak, delivering film to governments, to scientific. That's still to space. That's still going on. Even though the world is dig, there is enough production so that these films, this is my opinion, that these films are being manufactured. So, like the new FPP Derev film, I mean, that's an aerial film. That's being used for some type of military surveillance. No company's just going to make it for, us.
No, we don't shoot enough.
We just don't shoot enough. So I think it's a much bigger thing. And I think the same applies to Fujifilm and FP 100C, which that was a vibrant ID business. Mm-hmm. The majority of the
Passport
customers
cameras,
were countries buying massive quantities of films to make IDs. And at some point, the dig conversion just kept chipping away at that.
Yeah.
And then one day comes where they're just like, we can't make it anymore. And then, the thousands of artistic shooters of it don't mean anything. It's terrible. Kind of makes you sad.
We're all just sitting here like
grains of film in the emulsion of life.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark.
All we are is dust in the negative.
Yeah. All right, we're on a letter roll here.
Hey.
Thank you, Tony. It's a good letter. It's an interesting letter. It's a thought-provoking letter. And we're doing the best we can. And I would say, for folks out there listening, and there are a lot of shooters or hoarders who will buy that body-sized freezer.
One bodies or two?
Or two or three bodies.
And buy a ridiculous amount of film, and then you have it for your supply, it's your vault, and then you don't have to worry about the emulsion going away. You just keep buying it.
Survivalist.
Yeah.
Survivalist.
I have recently entered into the world of film survivalist. I grew out of the food freezer and have gotten a 2-body freezer. It was the smallest.
For real?
I know.
But you're shooting 8x10. That's different than 35.
You know how many sheets that thing can hold?
Are you hoarding a lot of film?
Well, I didn't think I was.
Okay.
And then the girlfriend was like, "Hey, can we get ice cream?"
Can we make room for one hamburger?
Yeah.
Oh, you needed a separate.
I needed a separate operation, but
Yeah.
now it's like, oh, what's that humming? Like I can't win.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
super hoarder. I have, I was just commenting on Instagram a couple weeks ago with somebody about the FK 25.
Ooh.
And I have a stockpile of that. I shoot about one roll a year. And I have about a 20-year supply if I keep shooting one a year.
Who am I to talk? I've got 3 fridges.
Yeah.
Well, at the shop.
I have
the
fridges
freezer at
scattered
home.
across multiple locations.
But I needed it for retail sales.
Sure.
Yeah.
Next letter.
Big Filma. Sorry. Oh, this is just great. This is from Dixon Lou.
Oh, yes.
Just listen to podcast 213 where Matt mentioned he felt like I was burning him with the Pentax Auto 110. I never had the note on that, Dixon. Thank you so much. I was just kidding. That is the greatest little package altogether because it didn't just have the 110 in the FPP tin. You know, the little FPP. Now that's the dog treat jar. So when they hear that rattling, FPP.
Oh, cute.
No, that Auto 110 was sweet. I still had some leftover Lomo Tiger, and I shot through some of that. It was pretty neat. And, you know, holding that up next to an 8x10 slide, there's quite a dichotomy there. But no, it was.
Maybe you should post one image on your Flickr.
Maybe I should. No.
Okay.
It's very curated, Mike. No.
Yes.
But no, Dixon, thank you so much. The camera works. It was great. And I like the results for what they are. When I brought that into Midwest. So did I tell you Midwest has like this film is taking over, Mike? There's a lot of like younger, cooler kids now. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Tom. He shoots film. Matt's another gentleman named Matt Seal. He shoots a lot of film. There's half the kids there now shoot film. It's great. So they flipped when they saw the 110. It's pretty cool stuff.
Is there a second one by Dixon?
There is a second one.
This is a scary one. This is a scary one because Dixon will buy something. He will buy something at Goodwill, and then it seems like this. Where did this package get sent?
Oh no!
Exactly. Oh no is right.
He sent it. Oh, yeah. He sent it. It was sent an N65 from the Goodwill. Not sure why they have me as the recipient, even though I specifically used your donations as the address. So shipping information, it went to Dixon Lou, but here in Fairlawn. So I bet it's the guys next door.
Yep.
They got
Not those people.
They got
up on the corner.
N65.
Well, so the guys next door,
What's that?
when they open the box,
Plastic things?
they open the box, see the Nikon plastic. In your neighbor's accent, what would they say when they open that box? Where I just like, do a voice. Do a voice.
How is that my problem?
Yeah, but you just like...
You accidentally got my camera. It was that my problem.
Okay, there you go.
I just want my...
So they see a
problem.
box, and it says Dixon Lou. What do they say?
How is that my problem?
That's all they say.
That's what he says to me.
Dixon, the camera is either next door on this side or next door on the other side. Why it isn't here, I don't know.
I
But
thought you were saying they shipped it to his home.
No, it shipped to here,
Attention him, but at
no company
our
name.
Fairlawn address.
So it just says this address, but Dixon Lou.
Yeah.
So we're going through donation cameras. There is some hope. We're going through donation cameras, and we may, if we see a Nikon N75,
65, yeah.
N65, we'll know it. It may make its way here.
Oh man, those donations! Big shout out to any folks that have taken the time to pack and ship their beloved film cameras that have hopefully been tested. If not, we test them. So many every time I'm out here, there's just a new row of donate. It's crazy.
Oh, speaking of donations, I did hear back from the instructor at the LaGuardia School.
Yes.
So it's thumbs up. So that box you guys packed will go out today. The last time you guys were here, we sent the package out to Richmond, Virginia, Richmond Community High School. And I have some more letters from instructors. The FPP school donation program, it's in full swing again.
Energy boost.
Is that homemade fudge?
What is this, homemade?
It's Nanaimo bars. I made them last night.
My mama bars.
Your mama bars.
Nimslow bars? What are they?
Nanaimo.
The Nanaimo bars. They're just made out of butter, chocolate,
British
butter,
Columbia.
coconut, graham crackers, and
Butter, chocolate butter.
and sugar and butter.
I'm going to put it on a little platform.
Good, right?
Is that Leslie? Are you okay?
Coconut.
Yeah, coconut in the bottom.
What do you got there in that package? Like a book. What do you got there?
Which one? This one?
Yeah, what's that one? This is turning into a letter of Palooza, which I love.
Oh man.
In 10 minutes, we're all going to be completely wired. We all have to eat them at the same time.
How much sugar do you put in
man,
these?
that's sugar.
Sugar City?
Oh,
How much sugar you put in them?
Sugar County.
This is a package from...
our good friend, Mr. Johnny Bryan.
Oh, Johnny Bryan.
I'm going back, man.
In classic.
Oh, wait. Hey, go back there. Get that hug.
That'll be a winner.
Chicken dinner.
What we got there, Matt?
In classic Mr. Johnny Bryan fashion, we have a very well composed typewritten note
Manifesto.
Typewritten.
on some really nice stock. I think this is Crane's.
Did he sign it? Because it would be with a fountain pen if he did.
This is some Crane's 100% cotton
Love it.
stock, hand signed. So this was wishing us. Oh, jeez, Mike, where did you unearth this from?
Oh, what's the date?
2017.
No, stop.
When I say whoa, I mean whoa.
Oh, hey, Johnny Bryan. That one was on my desk under a pile of papers today. When I printed out the emails, I'm like, oh, wait. I knew I had some stuff that was just mailed in.
I think I remember back to when Johnny was making these, because I follow him on Facebook. But these are actual black and white darkroom prints on Ilford postcard stock.
Cool.
And these
No kidding.
These are sweet. I love that paper. I don't think that is currently available from Ilford. There might be some new old stock floating around, but it was just the best. I had a chance to print out for my very first show when I did the barbershops on that paper, and it was great.
What was your first show? I remember the barbershops.
The Ilford postcard stock was the RC Deluxe. It's their double weights, pearl finish. It's just the good stuff.
See, I don't think Kodak ever made postcard stock in RC.
No, and that's what made the Ilford so popular.
Yeah,
because you
theirs
could
was
just-
Coda-Brome or Coda-Bromide. I don't remember which
you
it
can-
was.
You can fire off a show in record time with this RC Pearl.
You had to have a big old... Oh, that's a beautiful
The
shot.
thing is, about time, there is a lag. I attribute it to I call it the Columbia House theory. When you get your card in the mail for Columbia House,
You may have to explain what that is.
What is Columbia House? Is that coffee? What is that?
Columbia House is a record and tape club from the 1970s, probably through the 1990s.
Tape.
And it was the craziest thing, and everyone got involved because for 1 penny, they would send you like 11 or 13 LPs completely for free. But, and they are free. But then you're in the club,
Uh-oh.
and then every month you get a card and a brochure, and there's a record of the month. And unless you send that card back, you get that record.
And then you owe them money.
That's right, and then you owe the money. But it was on a leapfrog effect. So you get the thing in the mail, you get the card, you'd forget about the card,
Of course.
and then you get the next month's package, and then that LP would arrive. It was on like and they actually had a picture with the leapfrog with like an arrow. So when you don't send that card in, it'd take another month for that LP to arrive.
Look what's coming in your mail. It says, get 11 albums for only $1 when you join the Columbia Record and Tape Club. Terrific? Well, I'm about to tell you how to go this offer one better and get 12 records or tapes instead of 11 for that very same dollar. First, look inside. You'll see over 300 great albums. It's easy to find 12 you want because you have a choice of all the top labels, the music and performers you want most to hear, like Chicago.
Baby, what a big surprise. Right before my very
Barry Manilow.
But it's daybreak. If you wanna believe there can be daybreak. Ain't no time.
Peter Frampton.
I'm in you. You're in me.
The Carpenters.
Holding on to bits of interplanetary craft.
The Captain and Tennille.
Love will keep us together.
And Stevie Wonder, James Taylor, Kiss, Barbara Streisand. The list goes on and on.
Now, to get your 12 records or tapes for only $1,
All you do is look for the secret gold box. This one, right on the savings certificate. Secret? You bet.
So what you're saying is we need to do this with Funky Films.
No, Mark, would you hand me that blue bag right there? See it, the aqua blue?
This month's Columbia House just got here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carole King Tapestry.
What happens is, so Johnny Bryan, what happens is, like you sent your card in, it almost needs to mature, the mail. You know, so here's a bag that Leslie Lazenby gave me. I'm going to say Leslie gave this to me in
I forgot I even used
By
that
the look
series
on
of
her face,
colors.
this was a while ago.
Oh,
20...
Oh,
13?
I've
14.
been wanting one of these.
What the heck did I say?
That was the dark cloth, right?
This is, what do you call these things?
That was the custom dark cloth.
Focusing claws.
A hood.
They surfaced.
This is a large format.
Oh.
Focusing cloth.
Hand embroidered, weighted, sweet dark cloth.
Leather.
You put it over your head on your large format camera so you could focus. It's embroidered. Leslie just handed this to me. It was told me about what a great idea it is, and I put it in the bag and put it on a shelf. So the point of this whole thing, a very long, meandering conversation, is
This is thought out.
Leslie-
This has the hooks and everything.
No,
to
it's sweet.
It's really sweet.
so Johnny Bryan. When you send your letter in, don't be like
don't get offended. I get ignored too.
Yeah, it just takes a little time for it to kind of. But that's so much care put into that letter. It's
There is.
hand typed, thought put into it.
He
and
always puts that extra special
greatly,
touch.
greatly appreciated. Likewise, you guys are talking about paper, and now that I have multiple 4x5 cameras, I think Joseph Brunges gave this to me years ago. It's called Harman Direct Positive Paper.
Oh, yeah.
And do you not own any of this,
used
Mark
that.
Dalzell?
Shot it.
Not the Harman. I still have my Galaxy.
Oh, so do I. I got it in 5x7, so it would encourage me to use my 5x7 Linhof.
So I could
It didn't.
That would not work.
correct me if I'm wrong. I could load this in my camera, shoot it, then process it in Dectol,
Yes.
and I will have a positive printed
Ooh, yeah, that's
print.
Right.
That is that's paper gold you got there, Mike.
Really? Is this still made?
No,
Oh, get out!
very hard to come by.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, my darkroom roomie would.
Kill me.
Well, maybe.
Hey, I'll stab you! I'm trying to wake this show up.
No, Steven, that's what he
shooting it
worked
is
on was the
counterintuitive.
direct positive.
One of the photographers, FPP listeners, friend of FPP, who does amazing things with the FPP infrared film in cheap plastic cameras is Lorraine Healy.
Yes, she's got some really, really neat pinhole work. that
Yep,
she does.
beautiful work, and she stays in touch. And most recently, she sent us her new book, which I love the title, Mostly Luck.
Yes, mostly luck, odes, and other poems of praise. So I don't know how I first got hooked up with Lorraine. I think it was Twitter. I saw she was using a lot of the same like hashtags, the film photography hashtag and the believe in film hashtag. And there was, I can't remember what it was. There was a giveaway or something. She'd mentioned she listened to the podcast, and all of a sudden, a few weeks later, I had her first book in the mail.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so she sent that over, and then no, this is great. A prolific writer and poet.
The last book I have on my shelf, and I would like to say this book was addressed to myself and Leslie.
Ah,
So, Leslie, this is for your bookshelf.
Yes.
lovely, because I do love reading her writings that go along with it. Very much so. Ode to July. Not my favorite month. I might skip that one.
Skip right to Ode to Mark Dalzell's Crab Fest.
Ode to October. Ode to a peach? She wrote this for me. I love peaches. Oh, no.
Ode to Garlic.
Yes.
I will briefly talk about garlic, very briefly.
And there's Ode to October.
Very well. You've
I am of
my
the
arm.
belief that if you take a garlic clove, just chop it into bits and put it on top of whatever you're eating raw and eat it, that garlic will blast through any like incoming cold, flu. It's just garlic is, I think, a miracle, and I'm not afraid to smell. And like today, I'm not on garlic. I'll pace my days. Like if I know I'm just coming in the office, I'm going to be rolling.
Clover around your neck.
Yeah. So I ate like I eat like 2 cloves of garlic, and that's powerful stuff. It really comes through your pores. I went to visit my parents. My dad, he grabs me to the side. He's like, I just want you to know, you stink. That's what he said.
That's great.
I'm like, Dad, I did too much garlic yesterday. And he's like, are you sure? I don't know. It doesn't
I was
smell
down
good.
under the overpass.
Yeah, Mike's drug of choice, garlic.
Yeah. So I
It's
love
garlic.
powerful, beautiful garlic. Yes.
You sneak a clove in between podcasts?
I do. When we come back, we're going to have a little bit of a canothon here.
Can't you put her in the bathroom? I'm doing my show. No, you can do it by yourself. I'm doing my show.
Canon is proud to be the official 35mm camera of the 1984 Olympics. Like gold medalist Jennifer Chandler, it takes precision to perform at this level. Here, the Canon AE1 program performs, capturing Chandler's high diving artistry through Canon's high technology.
And it's so simple, you'll flip for it.
Canon's AE1 program, so advanced, it's simple.
Enter the Canon Olympic Go for Gold contest. You could win this exciting 84 Pontiac Trans Am.
Hey, we're back. I'm going to pass the mic to Leslie Lazenby.
Great.
Will you be doing two Canons, the A1 and A2E, or that's separate?
That's separate. I'm going to go right with the big boy, the mighty Canon A1.
The Canon A1, take it away, Leslie.
Wow. You know, do you recognize that lens?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You bought that for me for my birthday. I was talking about some other Canon, and I don't know what cheesy lens I had on there, but Mike couldn't take it. You got to have this, he goes, here.
No, this is my favorite. This is the 1.4 SSC.
Yes. You and I were talking about this camera, not this particular one, but the Canon A1. And with regards as why this is such...
There's so much sugar in this,
Yeah.
my ears are starting to ring.
My heart is just screaming. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to go get some nitro. Mike and I were talking about the Canon A1 in regards to why this is such a cult camera today. We ought to do a segment on this. Well, I'm thinking, great, but I don't have one. But I'll tell you how I acquired this one later. The Canon A1 was the first in the A series. It was the flagship of the A series. The AE1, the AE1P, the AT, the AL, all of those A series cameras. And Canon introduced this series as an option for their customers to complement the F system. It was a consumer grade with less features in the F and also a lower price point. But especially first in line of these series, they built these things like tanks. And I'm going to tell you, it has really rather remained the flagship of the Canon A series. But it's, you know me, I have got to do historically important, faster, first, this, that, and the other thing. And this is a historically important camera. It's the first SLR to have 4 exposure modes.
Whoa, what did it have?
What did it have? Manual.
Okay.
Great,
Manuel.
okay.
Manuel.
Aperture priority and shutter priority and program. Full electronic program.
So why does the AE1 just get so much more love than this camera then?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you my theory on that. Don't let me forget. And he's holding that thought. I call it feature-rich. I hope I don't say that too many times as I talk about this, but this thing is a feature-rich camera, and it made the sales of this camera boggle Canon's mind. This thing skyrocketed. The introduction of the T series, which followed the A series, did not come close to what this A series did and how it impacted photography today. So this particular camera, I mentioned, had 4 modes. I kind of lied. It's got 5 automatic modes. It has full manual, shutter priority, yeah. Program. What is program? That's pretty cool. Aperture priority. And it has stopped down aperture priority so that you can actually put it into that mode, stop your lens down, and get a constant visual feedback of your depth of field.
Is that what they call on their DSLRs now, the ADEP mode? Is that what they changed that
And
to?
see, that's the importance of this. We're still using these things on digital SLRs
They carried
today.
it over, yeah.
They carried over because they were so darn good. Another really cool feature about this Canon A series, the A1, is that it not only accepts FD lenses, it accepts the newer FDN lenses, most of the earlier FL lenses, and even some of the R lenses for those Canomatics. Believe it or not, some of those Canomatic lenses will work on here. Typical 2-stop under and over, so even in the automatic modes, I don't have to go into manual to override my exposure. It has an exposure memory lock button that's on the side of the camera, so that as I compose, I can hold it in. I'm right-handed, the advance and the firing button's on the right side. I can hold this in with my left hand. My exposure's locked in, recompose my picture, and take it. The viewfinder display, it's big, it's clean, it's easy to see, and it can be turned off. You don't have to have the readout flashing at you the whole time. There is...
That's an interesting feature. I've never heard of that before.
No, and I tried it, and it follows along in my segment, so I'll kind of skip it when I get there. But putting the camera into program, because I'm pretty convinced that program's going to do well for me. It's going to choose the right numbers. Turning the finder off made me only look at my image. All I did was concentrate on my image, not the numbers, and away we went. So it's kind of really nice for like street photography. Just turn that off. I'm not taking that extra second to check those numbers.
Turn off your targeting computer.
That's right. It has something called dial guard. And that's not a deodorant.
Mike.
There's a lot of little dials on here, AV mode, TV mode, and they're all very close to where your fingers rest when you grip this camera and hold it properly. And not all that hard to accidentally spin one of those dials as you're taking pictures. You can lock the dials in and you won't move them. That was really a good feature. I've always did this the hard way. This is super, super sweet.
Sweet.
Getting big again. Everybody's liking to do multiple exposures. Mm-hmm. This is so
Is that
easy. Right? You take your first picture, shutter button, the advance lever, your thumb advance lever, goes all the way in against the body. And if you look down, there is another little lever underneath it. And when you flip that little lever underneath the thumb lever, you see a little red dot. It doesn't stand for Leica. It's a little red dot. Now I can fire away. Oh, I just unlocked it. You can fire away on this camera as many exposures as you want. And the film does not transport or does not move. But it allows the shutter to be cocked each time. It isn't. You're not moving the film. And then when you're done, just flip the thumb lever back out and you're in regular mode again. So the multi-exposure thing, that also is really brilliant, yes.
I never noticed that. I didn't know what that means. I just want to look
fire away. It only came in black. And we know what that means. That's perceived value. Mm-hmm. Because only professional cameras came in black. You paid more for them and it cost them less to make them. The package, as you bought it, also a smart thing at the time. The typical lens that came with this was the 50mm 1.4, a 1.8 or 1.7. It sold for around $625 new.
What year?
78, I believe.
Okay.
I can't believe I didn't mention that.
Anybody else have the money calculator, 1978 money to
I
today?
can tell you, $2,400 today.
Whoa, still worth it.
That's for the 50. I think it's a stunning camera to look at. The build quality is exceptional. At first, there looks like there is a lot of buttons and things on this camera. Once you familiarize yourself with them, they're where they should be. Nothing seems to be uncomfortable or in the wrong place here. But, before keyboard commandos, there were verbal commandos coming into your photo store looking at this saying,
"It only goes up to 1/1000th of a second. Some of your competitors go up to 1/2000th of a second."
It's pretty darn rare that I use 1/2000th of a second, but that was
trust it.
That's the point. That's the point they made. That, I think, was the concern with the program. They didn't trust it to make both choices, but apparently not, because of the sales of this thing, as I mentioned, were just phenomenal. The manual mode drove them a little bit crazy, too, because the camera only told you in the viewfinder where you should be, not where you were. Some of them tell you both, or they will tell you this is where it should be and where you're at is over or under. So they felt that was a little lacking in information as well. Now, neither one of those things bothered me, but I got to tell you what made me just a little darn nutsickles when I used this thing was...
Language, please.
What? AV, TV? Wait, where's my A for aperture priority, my S for shutter priority, my P for program?
Canon's got to be special.
Well, they had to be special, but then they got unspecial. I have to think of it like this and how they meant it. AV stands for aperture value. Okay, that's the aperture priority. I've made the connection. I got it. TV stands for time value. Time, shutter speed. I've got it now.
Interesting.
You can either flip those two switches on the camera, flip them back and forth, and see the number option it gives you, and you figure it out. Or you can go to Butkus and download a manual and read about it.
Who?
What's his first name? Mike. Mike Butkus.
Butkus, Manual Haven.
Manual
Free.
Haven.
Donate,
He has
please.
manuals for the MPP technical camera.
He's
got everything.
It's amazing. God bless him. So My theory is the reason why the AE1P is a more popular camera than this is because they went to A, aperture priority, S modes for shutter priority, that kind of thing. A little bit more as we think of it today, and those people buying a camera like that today, they're already familiar with that. They don't get thrown off by the AV TV thing.
You know, on the retail side of things, I jump for joy when I see an A1 come in on trade because it almost never has that wheezy shutter.
Mine's
the squeal.
Mine's got the squeal. Which, no, it's kind of charming.
I like it too.
It's charming. It just
the Canon cough.
Emphyseema's charming.
That's the one.
Why do you suppose Canon is plagued with that? It's almost like it's built in.
Almost. It takes a little time to do it, but yeah.
Get used to it. It doesn't hurt the shooting. It's just a funny sound.
It's those horizontal cloth shutters, man.
No, because a lot of people have them. No, a lot of people were not super fond because it didn't go to 1/2000th of a second. But what it does is it goes in the other direction. 2 full seconds, 4 full seconds. Most go to 1 second, and then it's B mode. Count it down yourself, girly. The first time I used this camera, I really appreciated it because I was shooting on a tripod, and I was using those numbers. It was dark, Christmas light type of thing. As I mentioned, too, the viewfinder I did turn off and use the camera without it, just for a couple shots to experience it. And it is interesting not having any information except for your visual image in there. And you just really almost immediately think different about how and what you're shooting. It's almost a little bit relaxing and zen. It's just you and the image.
That's how I feel focusing at a camera that doesn't have like the split circle or or anything.
Yeah, just the matte. Just you and the image.
I love that.
Are one. When you do turn it back on, though, it is the ultra cool, and I've always loved these. The red LEDs from the 70s and the 80s, that's what you see in here. That printout is delicious. Now, I've not had the camera very long. I already really enjoy using it. The build quality and the speed, I'm very impressed with. My camera came from my friend Stephen Bassett in Southern California, and I suspect it's always been a Southern California camera. And I rather expected this thing to cough up a hairball the first time I used it, because it was 20 degrees in Ohio, and I'm taking this little Southern Cal camera out, putting it on a tripod, and I just know those shutter speeds are going to be gummy. They're going to be too long.
Were they?
No. This thing is like off the shelf cool. It was amazing. That 2 seconds I counted it out. Went the, wow, that seems like it's right on. The 4, that seems like it's right on. This is not, because usually when they lag, it's noticeable. Mm-hmm. This takes the classic PX28 battery. Fits under the grip, and they did not change that through the majority of that A series. I'm not sure if they all take that battery or not. I know the A1, A1P does, most common. But as mentioned, the insight into this camera and the features into this camera still affect our cameras today. DSLRs, they're all using this. Everybody, at the time, other manufacturers hustled because they did not have these advanced automatic modes, exposure modes, and it was like a tear down, rebuild thing. Let's get with it. Canon did it, so can we. And this is something that Mike just talked about, and I don't know how well this will hold up. Today on the Bay, you're going to pay about $90 to $100 for this camera. 2 years ago, $50 to $60. Yeah. Now, how long will that last? I don't know. I'm not going to say it has the investment qualities or features.
It's
maybe
very reasonable for this quality camera.
It's a steal.
Yeah.
It is really a steal. I highly recommend, if you have an A1 and you see somebody that offers you one of these for $20 or whatever, I highly recommend getting it. It's a joy to use. It's just a classic piece of camera machinery. I'm thrilled to have it, and thank you to Stephen Bassett, who said, you can keep this, you don't have to give it back. And I said, well, I'll note it. If you want it back, it's yours, but I'm really glad to keep this. I really enjoy using it. That is the beautiful Canon A1, and even though I'm very pleased with it, and I'm sure you have noted my positivity here, I still don't feel like I have emphasized enough how much this influenced the industry and what a great camera this is.
Thank you, Leslie.
I don't know who had a better day, John Newcomb or me. because his great shots are mine too, with my Canon camera and Canon lenses, like a wide-angle lens, or this telephoto. Make shooting close, clear, crisp, or the zoom. Canon quality from out far to in tight. For me, it's Canon and only Canon. In a flash.
If you're shooting for pro quality, put a Canon on your Canon.
For cameras today, to shoot your way, it's Shootan. For every camera need.
Shootan Camera, downtown on Wacker Drive at LaSalle, presents the most versatile Canon ever, the computerized Canon A-1. This extraordinary 35mm camera gives you 6 different exposure modes, 5 automatic, 1 manual, each for a different application. For fleeting expressions, fast-moving subjects, or any kind of action, the Canon A-1 offers shutter priority automatic exposure. For landscapes, architecture, portraits, or any still object, use the A1's aperture priority automatic exposure. For carefree, foolproof photography, use both modes simultaneously with the Canon A1's programmed automatic exposure. For more specialized types of photography, the Canon A1 offers stop-down automatic exposure. For indoor or night shooting, add a Canon speedlight, and the A1's automatic exposure system will give you perfectly exposed flash pictures automatically. And for creating that special mood, the Canon A1 also offers full manual exposure control. All exposure information is clearly displayed in the viewfinder's digital readout. The versatile Canon A1, now at this incredibly low Shootan price.
Shoot with the best, your cost is less. It's Shootan. For every camera need.
Shootan Camera, downtown on Wacker Drive at LaSalle.
And now, did you hear those sirens? The doctor has arrived. The doctor is in. Leslie Lazenby.
Pen out of the pocket. Let's get this puppy rolling. Got a little message here. It says, my lens will not focus close enough to small things. A friend recommended getting an extension tube. What are they? Which one do I need? Some come in groups. I find the numbers so confusing. Which lens do I use it with? Okay, now slow down, buddy. Let's just take this one question at a time. I'll break them down. Which one do I need? Yes, a lot of times they do come in groups of 3, like a 12mm, a 24mm, a 36mm. Or you can buy just a single one. All you need to remember is the higher the number, the closer you can get to your subject. You can also stack 3 together and get even more magnification. Next question you flew at me. Which lens does it go on? Technically, it can go on any lens, but start off with your 50mm lens. These are typically made for viewing through the lens, single lens reflex type cameras, not just necessarily 35mm. Also 120, but anything has a removable lens, so you can play with them, stack them up, put different lenses on them, and actually see what's going to happen. So that's not so limiting. You get a little preview on that. But I do recommend starting with 35mm cameras, your 50mm lens. If you have a medium format camera, start with your 80 or 90, your normal lenses. But you can't even use them with 28s. But if you put them behind a macro lens, you're going to get a micro lens, which is pretty fantastic. How do you use them? And this is probably the trickiest bit of using an extension tube. When you use an extension tube, you take your lens off the camera and you put the tube on the camera first and then the lens. If you're using more than one extension tube, it's best to put the tube on first, put the next one on, then the next one on, rather than making the tube of 3 in front of you and attaching it, or rather than attaching the tube to the lens and then putting it on your camera. You need to put the tube on first and then stack them up or build your order up. You can remove them in any order you like and disassemble one at a time, the whole group. It doesn't matter. And why is that important? Because these extension tubes actually couple with your lenses, meaning they also couple if you have a metering system in your camera, and you have to make sure that you put those lenses on so that they reach or grab or connect with the coupling as you're turning and mounting the lens. And if you pre-assemble them, they may not be lined up. Advantages and disadvantages. Now, you really didn't ask this question, but we know that you can buy close-up lenses to put on your camera. And they really do two different things. Close-up lenses that attach to the front, like filters, they are filters, allow you to get closer, but not as close as an extension tube. They will reduce the minimum focus of a 50 millimeter lens that maybe is 24 inches down to 18 or 12. They are stackable too. But they are pieces of glass that if they're dirty, we're talking close-up lenses, if they are dirty, they're going to degrade your image. If you stack them together, that's 3 more pieces of glass that if you purchased an inexpensive set, 3 more inexpensive pieces of glass, maybe not coated on the surface of your lens. Whereas that extension tube has no glass in it. So you are using the glass that you spent money for. That glorious original 50 millimeter multi-coated lens is still going to give you all of its advantages. Both of them, extension tubes more than close-up, will require more light. If you have a meter built into your camera, it's really nothing to worry about because as I mentioned, they do couple up with your camera's metering system and the lens itself so that when you choose your f-stop and fire, it'll stop your lens down and do the things necessary to give you that proper exposure. And that probably is it. If you need to be really close to something small, you need extension tubes. If you just have a lens, such as I know Mike really likes to use a +2 close-up lens, holding it in front of the Debonair, because it doesn't have a super close focus. And he uses, I believe, a Koken on that. And with Koken, you always bought them individually, so he just has a number 2 in his arsenal. So yes. Extension tubes get you extremely close, allow you to maintain the sharpness, do require more light. But I'm going to tell you it's probably also a wise thing if you're a dig shooter, because a lot of people today are digitizing their negatives, and they may not have the close-up capabilities on their SLR, DSLR. You can throw an extension tube on and use your glass. And I'm seeing questions, anybody? Comments? Mark.
As a longtime macro shooter, I think one of the things that people sometimes just don't realize is that, yes, they're getting really close to their subject, and in the macro realm, then every little bit of movement is magnified as well.
Absolutely.
So you really want to, when you really need good lighting on your subject. So today, that's a lot easier than it was 20 years ago with all the LED ring lights and all that are out there. And those are good accessories to have to get light on your subject. But the other thing you really want to do is also have your camera rock solid. If you're doing nature photography and you want really close-up macro, you really need to use flash, because then your moment of exposure is a very narrow slice of time with a flash. You can get away with doing it handheld. If you're using ambient light or a low-power light source, you really need to have some sort of tripod or monopod or something to keep the camera from shaking, because especially if you go beyond extension tubes and decide to get a bellows, then that's even just, it's like having variable extension tube in the front behind your lens. And so again, you probably need to use a tripod. So just some good practical advice from Leslie. And I think that if you are really interested in doing macro photography of any sort, extension tubes are probably the cheapest way into that without spending a lot of money for a macro lens.
2 questions. First, I've only used extension tubes on my old Canon FT, which is a fully manual camera.
Mm-hmm.
So what if you have like a newer, like a Canon EOS type camera that's a little more electronic? Are tubes available? And number 2, where would someone get extension tubes in 2019?
I would probably, my first option would be, is if you have a camera store like Midwest, if you're in Ohio, they may have them in stock. If not, you're going to have to go to the internet, and I probably immediately would go to the eBay to buy them. And there again, I'm just thinking if they don't come in a set of 3 and I'm really looking to get close, you're going to go with that 36 rather than a smaller number like 12. And they typically don't have problems. So it's not like, oh, they probably didn't test these out or did test them out. They're pretty fail-safe. They really, unless they're dropped and ran over by a truck, they are probably going to work for you.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Ta-da. Take a quick break. We'll listen to this Canon AE1 commercial.
When I shoot a great champion like Ben Crenshaw, history can happen at any time. And that's why I stay ready all the time with my Canon AE1. The zoom lens puts me right where the action is. So if Ben gets that one miracle shot, I get it too. Ben, you try the zoom. Sure. Even with the zoom, the Canon AE1 is as easy as focus and click.
The incomparable Canon AE1, so advanced, it's simple.
Hey, when are you going to crack open those deliciously salty Fritos?
Oh.
Okay. Does anyone remember the Frito-Lay 1972 WC Frito commercial? They took WC Fields and they incorporated it into a chip spokesman.
WC Fritos here. I recall crossing the Great Plains in a wagon, a station wagon that is. We were besieged by a band of restless desperados. I suggested we surrender the gold, the Munchie Nugget, Fritos brand corn chips. Fill their mouths with peaceful joy. If you gotta travel, you gotta take Fritos corn chips.
Sitting here just glowing.
Basking in
the day that anyone other than myself would be talking about the Canon T60. It's a camera that just gets people look at it and they don't. I've been shooting with it for years now. I own 2 of them. It's my go-to Canon camera. I love it, and never in a million years where I thought anyone other than myself would know how awesome it is. This is me thinking that Mark O is going to do an awesome review.
Just for the record, I went through a period back in 2009 and 2011 or so. Even though I was a Nikon user, I really thought I deserved to give Canon some love, and I went through a series of Canon cameras. Last fall, my friend Connie texted me, and she was at an estate sale of a photographer, and she said, "There's a bunch of stuff here," and I said, "Well, send me pictures," and because if you're not a camera person, it's kind of hard for them to tell you what's there. So she sent me some photographs of what was at the estate sale, and nothing turned me on. But then there's this Canon T60, and she said, "Oh, it looks like it's brand new." And I said, "How much is it?" She goes, $10. And I said, "Well, I'll pay it for it."
Mm-hmm.
And so she picked it up, and she gave it to me as a Christmas present this year. The Canon T60 came out after Canon had already switched over to the EOS system. It was the last manual focus FD mount in 35mm that was sold by Canon. It was introduced in 1990, and so it was well after the EOS was introduced. But people were clamoring for an inexpensive FD mount camera that they could use in schools and so forth. And I'm sure that there are people who are also saying, you know what? I like my Canon T-series cameras because they're really nice. Like there is the T60, of course. Before that, there's a T50, and what was the other one? The T70.
T70
and the T90. T90 was a pro camera.
T90 was like the bomb.
That was the beefy one, right?
Yeah,
yes.
beefy.
The T50 and T70 look like Betamax VCR remote control.
Yeah, they kind of do. And one of those, and I think the T50 was totally automatic. There were no manual modes in it.
And there was a ill-fated T80 that had an autofocus lens that I haven't even been able to find one.
Okay. It was designed as a cheaper camera for export. It was never sold in Canon's home Japanese market, which is interesting. In some foreign markets, the higher price of the EOS cameras was a problem, and so this is probably a compromise. It doesn't share a whole lot in common with the other T-series cameras that we just alluded to, because the T90 was a pro heavy-duty thing,
Mm-hmm.
T50 was totally automatic, the T70 had little push buttons, and this one is part of the reason for that. This camera was not made by Canon; it was made by Cosina.
Mm-hmm. See,
and there are a bunch of bodies that share very similar features that were made by Cosina. And if you look at the top deck of the camera, and without looking at the Canon label on it, which is just screen printed on the top, you would say, "Oh yeah, it looks like a Cosina, whatever." This is probably the same basis for the Nikon FM10, which is not made by Nikon, but also made by Cosina. And in general, I mean, it's easy to kind of like look askance and say, "Oh, it's a Cosina." But you have to remember, Cosina made the Bessamatics. It made the Bessa R cameras. They are not crap by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, they're mostly plasticky bodies, but so are a lot of cameras that were made by other people in the 90s. The one thing it does not share with almost every other Canon camera that I've held is that the main feature is its aperture priority.
Yes.
Now, if you're using a Canon AE1 or AE1P or almost any of the other Canon FD mounts, aperture priority is, if there is any priority modes, it's shutter priority. For some people, that is, it's shutter or aperture. Some people have a preference for which one they like. I've always been an aperture priority kind of guy myself. So, and it also, the top deck has on the control dial, it's got a lock button, which is interesting, and it goes from bulb and 1 second to 1/1000th. You put it in aperture priority, it's pretty easy to use. And the flash sync is a slow 1/60th of a second, which is a little surprising. The ISO goes from 25 to 1600, which is, for a student camera, I mean, this is pretty good.
Hey.
And for most people, that's within the range of what we shoot. It's rare that we shoot 3200 film. It's lightweight. It's got a self-timer button on it. I think that as time goes on, maybe some of these cameras won't last as well as some of the other cameras in the Canon series, like the AE1, which we just discussed, or the A1. But in general, if you've got one of these cameras and it's in good shape, unless you drop it on the floor or something, it should perform just fine. And this one is very nice new looking camera. So I'm shooting with it, and I opened Mike's eyes to that I have a much richer camera past than he's aware of. It's a lot of fun. I've got a 50mm 1.8 on here, and it's probably just all you need to go out and do a lot of shooting with. All the other camera that shares the same body in terms of features would be the Olympus OM2000.
Yes.
And also the Konica, I think it was the TCX was the other one. And it's based on the Cosina's CT1 chassis, basically. If you see one of these and it's in good shape, I mean, don't sneer at it.
No,
it's definitely
no sneering.
It's a good, definitely as a student camera, it's really going to be a good buy because they don't go for a whole lot on eBay. And as far, and I've been doing some searches lately, and they turn up pretty frequently. So this is a $10 purchase, so can't complain about that. The other difference is this has a metal bladed shutter because that was a Cosina thing, and they had a copal square shutter in these things. Far different than those squeaky, wheezy Canon shutters from the other.
I'm just happy that you shot with it because so few people that I know shoot with it and it gets sneered at and just brushed off. So
it's not a real Canon. Well, it is. It's take a Canon lens.
It's easy to shoot with, isn't it?
It is. It's easy.
Yeah.
And as a Nikon person, this reminds me of like a Nikon FE, for example, because it's aperture priority.
Now, because you were gifted this, do you see yourself keeping it?
I'll hang on to it. Yeah.
That's
nice.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Could you give a quick product review of that? So I handed Matt I'm not that knowledgeable on LF, large format. But I saw this, and I said, "Oh, this is a roll film back for a 4x5 camera."
Yes,
very cool.
So, can you smash or trash it?
Yeah, no.
And what is it called, and what does it do?
Sure. So this is a Calumet. This is a Calumet 6x7 roll film back, which means any large format 4x5 camera doesn't even have to have a Graflock back; just has to have a spring back. That's a very important factor because the old Graflex film holders don't go in spring backs. They go in Graflock backs, which have the two clips, top and bottom. This can go into any large format 4x5 camera. Drops in, same area as a standard film holder. It's got a locking plate. This one takes 120 or 220 film.
Oh, really?
Yes, because the counter goes from 1 to 20.
Okay.
And so it has a variable little pressure thing here, these little pressure deals, where you put that in, and it allows you to run through 120 or 220 film, which is pretty neat. Not a lot of 220 film around, of course, but my only beef with these type of film holders, my 2 cents, if you're going to shoot 6x7, get something smaller, 6x7. That's a pretty hefty crop from 4x5. You're getting a similar aspect ratio, but this is what an RB shoots. RB, RZ, Mamiya 7, things like that. So
Pentax 67.
Pentax 67. Hey, this will work way longer than Pentax 67.
How many exposures per roll 120?
So, sorry, 120 is 10 exposures. So it's your standard film spacing, like any other 6x7 camera. But the versatility here is, of course, with 4x5, you have those inherently longer focal length lenses, so you have that large format look. You can apply movements, but you would have to have something marked on your ground glass that approximates the crop. So you could do that with tape. And some people will want to use like opaque tape, but you don't have to do that. You can use Sharpie on your ground glass, or a temporary fix, which is kind of cool. You can just take some clear tape. So take some invisible tape, and when you put that on your ground glass, what will happen is that area of the ground glass becomes unusable, but it makes a nice little barrier line on that. That's how CNR and Arca Swiss did that.
If you're doing some rapid shooting, and let's say your crown graphic, do you need to keep the dark slide in at all? Can you just kind of leave it out and just keep, for rapid fire?
Yeah, as long as you're
with the rangefinder.
Yeah, if you're shooting rangefinder, if you're
Yes.
shooting ground glass style, as soon as you flip that lens open, you're going to be exposing. But it's got a pretty nice long dark slide. I'm not as big on the Calumet style holders themselves. Are fine because they're pretty cost effective. You can pick them up. I just don't like 6x7. I really like 6x9 or 6x12 on 4x5 because you're getting more. You're using more of that area. I like 6x12. It's got a nice form factor on there, the 1 to 2 ratio, so it's kind of longer. But as far as roll film backs go, these are a nice cheap pickup. You can usually get, you don't usually want to pay more than $50-$60 for a roll film back, but anybody that wants to have more versatility in their film stocks, remember, folks, there's far more roll films available than there are sheet films.
Sheets. Is this hard to load?
No, I could load it right now. I already have it set up. That's the take-up spool.
That's a take-up. Where do you put the... Oh, I see.
The other one goes there. So what you do is you feed it through under that black plate, lift up that black plate from the roller.
Oh, look at that!
So it loads underneath and then loops back around into the take-up spool. And then those little pressure nibs, those two little...
Only goes one... Oh, yeah, these? Yes?
Yep. Lift those up, and that's what applies the pressure.
Oh. And then it only goes one way.
Only goes one way. Once you close it, once you move it from the S...
Put on S?
No, great, close it.
Oh, okay.
Now, this only goes, you'll have to wind it all the way through anyway. So just go ahead and wind it till it stops. So this is what's nice. It's pretty automated.
Yes!
So now, once you make your first exposure, you hit it, and now you're to 2. And
you will have to manually hit this button after your exposure?
Yes, but that will also mean you could double expose and do some other stuff.
I can't... I have to go through... Oh, that's kind of weird.
What?
It's fun.
But it's... It's a alternative to the Graflex ones. I'm a bigger fan of the Graflex backs because they're smaller, but they're beefier, so you need to use a Graflock back camera.
You're done. Oh, you feel it get light?
So, in my case, where I'm using a converted Polaroid 900 rangefinder...
That's pretty sweet.
I slant,
shoot pretty wide and take a step back because it's going to be cropping in pretty tight.
Yep. You want to stay on that? Thanks for joining us, folks. Podcast at filmphotographyproject.com. Please do shoot us a letter, an email. Send us a something in the mail, P.O. Box 264, Fair Lawn, New Jersey 07410. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you super soon.
Bread is almost plastic. The patsy's barely meats. Cheeseburgers are the greatest. They really are a treat. It shouldn't be organic. must be engineered, assembled in a factory 1,000 miles from here, and flown across the ocean above the troposphere. Yeah. Cheap burgers, 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 cheap burgers. Give me all you got, give me everything on top. I'm getting deep, I need cheap burgers. Well, you gotta get it right, and no bigger than a handful. Well, no bigger than a bite. Yeah. Cheap burgers, 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 cheap burgers. Give me all you got, stick a pickle on the top. I'm getting deep, does I need cheap